Yeah.
So we've got a bunch of studies.
Stupid.
I mean, this is a very common story that came out a year ago, a year before that. White liberals are more likely to have a mental health condition. We've got this from Zach Goldberg. Has a doctor or other healthcare provider ever told you that you have a mental health condition? You can see that among white liberals, it's substantially higher, just about double that of what people who are very conservative report. Conservatives have the lowest level. Now, what I've heard, some people argue, like I mentioned on the liberals, they argue that this is because liberals are more likely to go to doctors. It's less stigmatized among the left. And I'm like, for the sake of the red flag laws, let's just say that's true. Wow. Could you imagine fascists exploiting the fact that you want healthcare to take away your guns when you want to defend yourself from the fascists? Personally, I don't believe that's true, because that would imply that people who are very conservative, far right, are more likely to go to the doctor than conservatives, which makes no sense. And it also makes no sense that someone who is liberal and someone who is very liberal would have different degrees of a stigmatized view of getting mental health therapy.
I think what you're saying, there's some evidence of what you're saying already, which is you found already, again, for the SAFE Act, you found people who are literally, find it affects veterans more than anybody else. Veterans are more likely to have a firearm than non-veterans, and they're also more likely to have some form of invisible injury, whether that's PTSD, traumatic brain injury, something like that than non-veterans. So you find out that a lot of veterans in their communities will not go get help because they know, to your point, in the second they have it on their record, someone's taking their guns. And it's usually a family member who's angry at them, or sometimes a former family member who's angry at them, for an ex, a spouse, a girlfriend, who will now take their gun away. So yes, it does happen. It's already happening in New York State.
I was thinking of external circumstances that can make people crazy, like New York City brake dust. There's brake dust in the atmosphere from all these cars. It's so small, particularly small, that it goes through the alveoli in your lungs and right into your bloodstream, which is way worse than like smog. Causes hypertension, which can lead to stress, which can cause to mental disorders, which can cause to a doctor visit. So like what? Just because you live near a toxic chemical plant, you can't have and you're more likely to go neurotic, means you're going to be less likely to have a weapon? I don't like that.
Did you know that there was a correlation, perhaps spurious, between leaded gasoline and crime rates? And as lead started getting removed from gas, crime rates started to go down. I guess the speculation is, as cars were driving, the lead was being, particularized, or particulates were going into the atmosphere. People were breathing it in. And it was poisoning them, and it was screwing with them. It was hurting their brains. So we got rid of that, and then crime went down. I'm not saying it's a direct cause and effect. It could be a spurious correlation. But the fact is, I think you make a good point. There was also a study on happiness that found that people who are closer to nature typically have higher rates of happiness. Mm-hmm. So imagine you live in a big concrete block that smells like sour milk and brake pads. We went to New York. I went to New York, when was this, like a month ago? 2 months ago? Man, it stinks. Mm-hmm. It's crazy being out here in the middle of nowhere and just all the different smells and all the fresh air and the trees. We're surrounded by trees, so it's all just clean, fresh air. And you go to the city and you're like, ooh,